The Ontario Minister of the Environment and Climate Change blamed the rise of ISIS on climate change. But he is not alone. He joins a choir of progressive left-wing apologists on this issue. The minister, Glen Murray, after the terror attacks in Paris, tweeted this: "Iraq's had warm temperatures recently. ISIS is gaining ground." Coincidence? That tweet is crazy, but it's somewhat expected. You see, when Murray was mayor of Winnipeg, he spent $1 million taxpayer dollars on a public toilet. Murray likes to spend taxpayer money on his pet projects, and now he's taken to blaming everything on climate change. This all comes together nicely to make him the perfect Ontario Liberal minister. A tornado struck Goderich, Ontario in 2011, and Murray used that fatal event to bolster his proposed cap-and-trade bill in the Ontario legislature. Watch.
Mr. Speaker, let me share with the member what I think Ontarians can't afford. The residents of Goderich and her constituency can't afford another devastating tornado, Mr. Speaker. They can't afford it. The people in Burlington, Mr. Speaker, cannot afford to see their operating rooms wiped out by 100-year floods, 2 in 24 months. Apple farmers in Ontario and rural Ontario can't afford to lose 80% of their crop anymore, Mr. Speaker. People who get their drinking water from Lake Ontario can't afford to risk it going toxic, so they can't even boil it, Mr. Speaker. Ontarians can't afford more frequent ice storms, Mr. Speaker. People who ride GO Transit can't afford $600 million of damage in a 1-hour storm, Mr. Speaker. We can't afford...
Thank you.
In fact, Glen Murray is so ridiculous, he himself has become beyond parody. There used to be this Twitter account of him that would tweet outlandish things from time to time, but Murray himself is so outlandish, no one, including myself, could tell the difference between the two accounts. I just can't imagine walking around feeling like the weather was out to get me all the time. But I think Murray feels that way a lot, and now he thinks the weather is causing terrorism. The Slate article Murray links to in his tweet argues that social tensions and crime are rising in Iraq as drought-stricken farmers move to the city. I'm not even kidding. But it's irresponsible, willfully ignorant, and I'd argue cruel to the victims of terror to offer the perpetrators of evil an excuse. And an excuse as moronic as this. But Democratic presidential candidate hopeful Martin O'Malley said the same thing. Listen.
For example, one of the things that preceded the failure of the nation-state of Syria and the rise of ISIS was the effect of climate change and the mega drought that affected that region, wiped out farmers, drove people to cities, created a humanitarian crisis.
And so did Democratic presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders. Here.
In fact, climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
And Obama told the same thing to a graduating class of Coast Guard cadets. Here.
Cadets, the threat of a changing climate cuts to the very core of your service.
And then Stéphane Dion, Canada's new Liberal Foreign Affairs Minister, said that climate change is the greatest threat Canada has faced in this century. Are you guys seeing a trend here? I am. These progressives just can't bring themselves to say that radical Islam is the problem. They'll scapegoat the weather instead. How can anyone trust them to address the threats to our national security when they refuse to name the problem? Climate change won't make you commit mass murder. Climate change won't make you buy and sell sex slaves and behead people you consider infidels. Climate change won't make you commit a terror attack on a crowded soccer stadium. But you know what? Radical Islam might. For TheRebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid.